How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the 1IQ Football Talk game predictions for week number 4. And last week, again, this season, Sterling, it has had some really, really weird upsets. I feel like this year, more than any other year, there's just been so many games that you pick and you walk into, go, oh, this is a for sure win for this team or this team. And then they just end up losing. And it's just been a really strange year for the picks.
Yeah, I mean, week one was by the book.
Yeah.
Like I think I went like what was it like 14-2 or something like that week one. Like I nailed almost every pick, and since then I've barely been able to get to 500 because we've had so many upsets every week. It's been absolutely crazy, and then just certain teams that are lights out for unknown reasons, like the Vikings. Nobody expected the Vikings to be 3-0 and to have a top three defense and Sam Darnold be going lights out. Like it's crazy, man.
Yeah, you look at the Vikings in week number 1 going up against the Giants. You're like, okay, you should beat the Giants. But then
Yeah.
49ers in week 2, Texans in week 3, you're like, okay, like you're not supposed to be beating those teams. Well, we could potentially give you one of those teams. We can look at you with the 49ers and say, okay, yeah, you can go out there and beat the 49ers because, they're dealing with some injury stuff, but it has just been absolutely bizarre. So let's see if week number 4 kind of continues that trend.
And you know what? I have a feeling it very well may. There aren't as many mismatches this week. A lot of the games are closer teams playing each other, so I don't think there's going to be as many upsets per se. But I know throughout my picks, I've got at least one in there that's gonna strike people as an upset.
Yeah, and we both kind of in our pre-chat meeting have a game where we have our prediction made for it, but we could easily both just change our prediction mid conversation because it's just one of those games. And again, once once we start talking about the game, it'll be pretty obvious to know because we're just going to start to immediately eyes glaze over and we're just going to be going like, I don't know. So,
Yeah,
but
it is our obvious garbage bowl game for this week as well.
yeah. But starting out with the battle of the Southern teams, where we have the New Orleans Saints taking on the Atlanta Falcons, where the Atlanta Falcons are minus 3-point favorites in this one.
Yeah, this is a big divisional matchup, especially since the Bucks managed to drop a game last week. It tightens up the race in this division so much more. We knew it was going to be a bit of a battle between the Falcons and the Bucks. The Saints came out hot to start the season as well.
We thought the Saints were going to be the
So
worst team in that division.
right?
Oh,
This
no,
is
the
going
Panthers are in that division. Second.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Panthers are the worst.
Yeah.
But this is going to be an interesting race in this division for sure. Falcons Saints, it's always a competitive game, but I think it's going to flip a little bit. The Saints got beat up a bit last week by the Eagles, and they're starting to feel a little bit. Kamara missed a couple of practices this week. Derek Carr, from what I hear, is dealing with a bit of a groin injury. So I don't think we're going to be seeing the 40-plus point Saints for a little bit. I don't know if we'll see them again this season. Those first 2 weeks might have just been out of the gate. They just blew their wad at that point, and it's over. So for myself, I look at the Falcons. They've been slowly getting it together. Kirk Cousins looks more comfortable under center now, which is good. I know that first week was really shaky for him. They had to be playing the pistol formation, the shotgun formation a lot, and that's not really Kirk Cousins' game. He's much more comfortable under center. And now that they know that Achilles is going to hold up, they've been having him under there a lot more. And so they're confident he can do those 3-step, 5-step drops. I think the Falcons are going to just keep getting better week in and week out at this point, and I am picking the Falcons to win this game. What did you say the spread was for it?
-3 for the
-3.
Falcons.
These teams always keep it pretty close. I do think the Saints will be able to keep it that close and cover that spread.
Yeah, I also have the Falcons in this one. I just look at these two teams going, they're honestly kind of polar opposites of each other, of where the Falcons started out so awkward and weird and they were trying to get some stuff figured out. Again, they won week 2 against the Eagles and they ended up falling last week. I forget who they ended up losing to last week, but not necessarily the most, or the Chiefs. So again, they kept it very close in that game. So
They did, yeah.
you're expected to lose that game if you're the Falcons. So this is going to be a fairly decent 11 a.m. game to watch. Saints, going back to the first 2 weeks, beat the Panthers, which is something that you were supposed to do. Shock the Cowboys. We'll talk about the Cowboys a little bit in our podcast video that's going to be coming out on Monday morning. This is, to me, I've always been a little bit critical of the Saints, going, you know what, they've shown some good things, but once you start to actually get a little bit banged up and a little bit exposed, how much do the training wheels start to come off? And Alvin Kamara, he's been easily the best back in all of football right now, something that you very wisely predicted. And let's just see how the Falcons team handles Alvin Kamara. And if they can shut him down relatively well, I don't think they have to worry about too much more from this Saints offense. And I just think the Falcons, they're starting to get everything clicking. Last week people were arguing that the Falcons should have won that game because there was a pass interference on Kyle Pitts. But Kirk Cousins, like what you're saying, he's a little bit more comfortable. They feel a little bit more careful, or they're feeling a little less worried about his Achilles. And so yeah, like I said, I'm picking the Falcons to win this one, and I do think the Falcons will end up covering the spread. I think the Saints team, I just don't know if they're going to be able to quite have it enough just to get, but it still should be a fairly close and comfortable game.
Yeah, if this wasn't a divisional matchup, I wouldn't be taking the Saints to cover that spread. But I know these teams, when they play in division, it's very rarely a blowout.
Yeah. Moving over to a game that I frankly don't really want to talk about, and that is the Rams versus my Chicago Bears, where the Bears are somehow minus 3-point favorites in this one.
Yeah, I don't know what it must be, the Caleb Williams effect or something, that, or the fact that the teams you guys keep going up against are having injury issues. I don't know, because even the Colts last week weren't having those injury issues. I don't know why the Bears keep getting the favorite slots.
Well, the Bears were underdogs against the Texans and against the Colts.
Oh, you were against the Colts?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think we were like minus 3-point underdogs last week.
Like, this Rams team just pulled out a big win over the 49ers when they're so banged up, and they've sort of shown that where the 49ers falter and fall apart when they have injuries, the Rams, with these injuries, they keep rolling. Even no Kupp, no Nacua, everybody thought, oh, the Rams season is over. And Matthew Stafford and Kyren Williams were like, sit down, shut up, watch what we can still do. And it's just, I don't know why the Bears are picked for favorites. The Bears have been improving, don't get me wrong. Like, they look good. They still have one of the best defenses. I know a lot of the rankings I saw had them at like 6 or 7. I disagree with that. I think they're more at the 4 or 5 mark right now in the league, in my opinion. So the defense is good. They're going to have to find a way to stop Kyren Williams, which is a tall order. We thought they were going to have a better run defense. We talked last week about how they should be able to stop Jonathan Taylor, and Taylor was still able to bust it for a couple of big runs, which is concerning when you got a guy like Kyren Williams. And then another that we haven't seen a lot of out of yet with Blake Corum there, he could have a breakout at any time. At any given handoff, he could just break it, because we don't know, we haven't seen a lot from him. Yeah, it's that Bears O-line is what keeps killing us. The Bears O-line, and Shane Waldron needs to tighten things up a little bit and not try to be so fancy. That was very disappointing last week, seeing, a 1st and goal on the 8, and they run it up the middle, they run it up the middle, and okay, it's 4th and goal at the 1. So logic dictates, run it up the middle, because you managed to get 7 yards over those first 3. Even if you don't, you're leaving that Colts team with 99 yards they got to go. but instead he calls a speed option out of a shotgun. Like I looked at that play so many times this week, and by the time the ball touches Swift's hands from that pitch, he's back at the 8-yard line again. And it's like, why? Why would you do this? And not only that, there's 4 guys right there ready to absolutely destroy him. It was disappointing to see because you guys would have won that game, I think, if he had just run that up the middle right there. It would have sealed that game. And so maybe that's why the Bears are favored, because they're hoping those mistakes are slowly getting out. Caleb had a great game. You know, he was over 350 yards passing, which is excellent to see from a rookie. There were still some mistakes made, yes, but that's improvement still. You know, like when you go back to week 1 where it was less than 100 yards and he did nothing, that this is promising going forward. Even so, Sean McVay has showed that he has the team he wants, injuries or not, and the Rams are going to keep surprising teams, I think, and the Rams are going to win this week, unfortunately, in Chicago, and therefore obviously cover that spread since they're the underdog.
Yeah, I will go into a much deeper rant on the podcast, so make sure to check that out on Monday.
That was why I kind of took the charge here, because I figured
Yeah.
you didn't want to get too ranty in this one.
Yeah, so you'll have to check back on Monday when that comes out, because I I have a theory on how the Bears should win. We're going to record the podcast right after this, so obviously we'll still be in the same getup. So you'll see if the Bears end up winning this game, and when that comes out on Monday, and you can listen to it and see if any of the things that I mention in that ultimately go through. But kind of just looking at this game, the big thing with Sean McVay is that he just knows how to work with the strengths of his guys. And this has been one of the biggest things that I've always said about coaches. Work with the strengths of your guys, not what you like. You, as a coach, you need to take your ego out. You need to just go, what are my guys good at? Because if I can put my guys in the situations that they are good at, they are going to succeed. It's what we said about Bill Belichick for years and years and years and years of why does he keep finding these dollar store grocery baggers and they just turn into these all pros. And, you know, we're having a debate whether Julian Edelman should be a Hall of Famer for what he does in the playoffs. Like, those are, like, how are we finding those types of guys? Because they did what they're good at. They put them in positions to win. And Sean McVay is doing that. I think if the Bears can just do that, where Matt Eberflus, we know Matt Eberflus is a brilliant defensive-minded play caller. He's doing a good job there. I think they need to tighten up and stop the run. I think Jonathan Taylor, we all know JT is one of my favorite backs in the entire NFL. One of my favorite backs. And so for him to kind of run a little bit loose, annoying from the perspective, but I still think the Bears defense is going to be able to settle Kyren Williams down a little bit. He hasn't had a great start to year number 2 for him. I think the Bears offense will improve. Knock on wood, do whatever I have to do, pray to every single God out there. I do think they will improve again this week because we have seen that growth continue. I think this is going to be a fairly close game. I do have the Rams winning it, however, just because I think the difference in this game is really going to be coaching. It's going to be Sean McVay versus Shane Waldron, who is a pupil of Sean McVay. And it's going to be a matchup of, you know, can Sean McVay do a better job than Matt Eberflus? And just saying that phrase out loud, I'm surprised we're both not on the ground laughing, going to the fact of we're trying to compare the jobs of Sean McVay and Matt Eberflus. Like it's basically like saying, who would you rather sleep with, ladies, me or Henry Cavill? It's it's not a fair comparison. But moving again, I'm picking the Rams to win this one, so I'm also picking them on the spread.
Yeah.
So moving to an NFC North matchup where we have the 3-0 Minnesota Vikings going into Lambeau Field to take on the Fudge Packers, where the Packers are minus 3-point favorites.
Which is mind-boggling to me. Like, I get it. It's the Packers in Lambeau, and they do have that wild card. Jordan Love was somehow practicing this week.
He's
But
listed as questionable right now, so
well, exactly. And Matt LaFleur has said he's going to play this close to the vest, and he's not going to announce who the starter is until the required 90 minutes before kickoff. And so we won't know if it's Malik Willis or Jordan Love. I don't think it matters. This Vikings defense, Brian Flores, I said it, what was it, 2 years ago when the Steelers brought him in to be a defensive,
he was a defensive assistant.
yeah, it was just sort of like somebody to overlook thing. He is so good at this. He doesn't have much for star power at all on this defense, and he has got it running like a well-oiled machine. You know, I saw somebody earlier this week, I can't remember who, that was joking and was like, "Why are we not calling this defense the Purple Haze? Because you don't know what they've got going out there." And I was like, that is a excellent name for this defense if they keep playing this way. The Vikings defense has been keeping this team in it while Sam Darnold, you know, is having a breakout year. You know, we saw it with Geno Smith a couple years ago, former Jets first round pick, all of a sudden is flourishing and showing that, hey, I was an NFL caliber quarterback. You guys just
needed
threw
to
me
get
into a
away from
shitty
the
situation
Jets.
too soon.
Yep.
You know, and so Darnold, he's building a connection with Justin Jefferson. And we got to remember, he's been doing this without Jordan Addison, without TJ Hawkinson. It's basically just been Justin Jefferson, Aaron Jones, Sam Darnold with a bit of a supporting cast. Like, what's going to happen when Addison and Hawkinson come back into the fold? This Vikings team is surprisingly good right now. And with the wins they've gotten last week, they beat the Texans, what was it, 34-7 or something like that.
Yeah, it was
like
an absolute murder. Like, just looking at that game, 34-7, just ridiculous.
It was a beatdown on the Texans, and that for me was a sign that the Vikings are not a team to be slept on anymore. And sure, the Packers have pulled out some tough, gritty wins, and they're gonna get themselves that namesake this year, where they're just gonna be that tough, gritty team in the NFC North. But it's not going to be enough to overcome the talent on so many of these other teams in the North. And I think the Vikings are going to keep it rolling this week. They're going to go into Lambeau and they're going to shock the Packers and pull out a win in Lambeau, which is hard to do. You know, even when this team is garbage in Green Bay, it's hard to win, you know, but I think the Vikings are going to manage to do it this week.
Yeah, I look at these two teams. I look at Jordan Love and the injury that he had. It's basically, they've been saying, "Oh, he's going to come back this week. Oh, he's going to come back this week," and they've been saying that every single week. And if I'm Matt LaFleur, I look at this and I go, "There's no chance you are 100% healthy for this game. You are not coming back 100% healthy. We just paid you a ton of money." And Brian Flores is really the boogeyman right now, because when offensive play callers hear they're going up against Brian Flores, they have nightmares. Like that is what this Vikings defense has been shown this year under the tutelage of Brian Flores. And if I'm Matt LaFleur, I'm going, you know what? We have won 2 games with Malik Nabers, or not Malik Nabers, Malik Willis. To me, I just continue to sit back and go, let him take the punishment in this one. Allow Jordan Love to get healthy, just even more healthy this week, because it is going to be really, really tough on him. You're going up against the Rams the following week, so that's a much easier matchup for a quarterback. Again, won't be 100% healthy. If you put Jordan Love out there and he takes one bad hit from this Brian Flores blitz-heavy defense, you could potentially not have your $60 million quarterback for the rest of the year and have to go with Malik Willis. And I just don't view that as a viable option. Just it's week 4. It's week 4. You're not going to win the Super Bowl or lose the Super Bowl in week 4. And so I just sit back and go, you're going to have an opportunity to see what Malik Willis is going to be able to do up against this real defense. And
if we had seen the Pack, like Malik Willis the last 2 weeks, if he had gone 0-2 and looked horrible, then okay, maybe you rush Jordan Love back a little quicker. But he's won both games he's played.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, like they started 0-1, Jordan Love got hurt, and they've won the next two games. They're sitting at 2-1 right now. And it's like, just ride it out with Malik Willis until Jordan Love is healthy. Because as you said, you just paid him. You bring him back too soon. He takes a bad hit. That injury worsens, and then he's gone for the rest of the season all of a sudden. You're like, oh, okay, well, now we don't have the option of bringing Jordan Love back when he's healthy this year because he won't be. You're absolutely right. Like he's playing mind games, and I hope that's all it is.
Yeah. Yep. I continue to look at this and go, it for me, I just put the hands up, and if I am LaFleur, I just go, Love, this is for your safety this week. Because again, we know we have kind of a mishmash of an offensive line. It's getting better. We drafted a tackle this year, but we just can't risk you for the rest of the year against this team. Again, we're 2-1. If we lose this, we're 2-2. And plus, right now, I just think this Packers offense, again, these last 2 weeks, they haven't really gone up against true defenses. They went up against the Colts defense. It's not a real defense. I forget who they went up against last weekend, but again, it's not anything necessarily special against the Titans defense. It's a decent defense, but it's not anything special. It is not the Minnesota Vikings defense, and I think that is going to be the big difference in this game. I think Sam Darnold is going to be fairly consistent with what we've seen from him, and I think the Vikings end up winning this game. And again, they cover the spread because, again, the Packers somehow being minus 3-point favorites seems a little bit kind of outlandish to me in this one with just how good we've seen this Vikings defense be.
Yeah, it's almost like the odds makers are just leaning home team friendly a little bit so far this week, is what it looks like.
Yeah, it's hard to know. But moving over to your team's game this week, where we have the 3-0 Steelers heading into Indianapolis to take on the Colts, and the Steelers are minus 2.5-point favorites.
Yeah, which I mean that spread isn't surprising considering the Steelers have not been scoring a ton of points. They did much better last week. Um, but the thing is, they are not letting the other teams score at all at this point. They're averaging 8.6 points per game at this point. The Colts have to be worried. You know, I heard them talking this week, and I kind of hope that their tunnel vision the way that they've been talking, because the coach came out and they're like, we have a plan for TJ Watt. It's like, great. I hope you do. I hope that's all you're focusing on, because Alex Highsmith is out with a groin injury this week, likely for a few weeks. But we saw that at halftime last week, and Nick Herbig came out in the second half, got himself a forced fumble and 2 sacks. He looked like a mini-me version of TJ Watt. And right now, TJ Watt's numbers aren't the greatest, but he has also been chipped at the line more than double rate than any other player in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
And so, by all means, you focus on TJ Watt, and what's going to happen is Nick Herbig is going to have a career day on the other side of the line because this kid is fast and explosive. Like, you watch him come around that edge, and he is so quick. There's no getting away, even for Anthony Richardson. He's gonna have a hell of a day, and that's gonna be it. You got to get to Richardson fast, early, and either hit him or intercept him early. And I think this defense has the ability to do that. And if that happens, this game is going to fall apart for the Colts. On the other side of the ball, the Steelers have looked better every week so far. It's not been leaps and bounds. It's not been, highlight or superstar play, but it's been just slow, steady increments of improvement. And that is good enough for me if that continues. Justin Fields had almost 250 yards last week. If he can get up over 200 again, if we can see over 100 yards rushing again, I see no reason to be betting against the Steelers this week. They are the best defense in the league right now, and they are one of the more improved, consistent offenses that we've seen coming up. And so I think the Steelers are going to win this game, and I don't think the Colts come close to covering that spread.
Yeah, This game kind of has the writing on the wall of where it has that feeling of almost like some of the other games that we've seen this week, of where it's going, or throughout the season, where we've just sat back and went, this is just such a favorite game for the Steelers because of this reason, this reason, this reason. And then it comes back a week later where we're going, how did that result happen? Like
Yeah.
this game kind of has that feeling. But at the end of the day, everything that you stated is very accurate. The Anthony Richardson, from what we have seen this year, he might be the worst starting quarterback in all of football right now. He just does not see the field well. I know we wanna say Deshaun Watson, but genuinely, you look at Anthony Richardson, the way that he is played, when he has to go up against real defenses, he struggles, man. Like, I don't know how the Texans didn't find a way to slow him down in week number 1, and everyone was going, oh, Anthony Richardson's the dude. And then from week 2, week 3, he's looked horrible. And the 2 interceptions that he threw against the Bears were some of the worst interceptions I've seen since Will Levis threw an interception to the Bears. Like, it has been like they were bad interceptions. And this Steelers team, they're going to be able to feast on that. And again, if Nick Herbig can get around the line and get Anthony Richardson, he's a tough guy to take down. Like, he is a big boy that's hard to tackle. And but you can still get him. You definitely can still get him. And if they can just slow this offense, or this Colts offense down, you don't need to score more than 6 points if you're the Steelers.
Right. I mean, I would like to see them score more than 6 points. Obviously,
No,
but
no. I'm just saying that as a
yeah,
broad example. Like, I genuinely think the Steelers could walk away from this game 3-0.
yep,
They could genuinely win by a hockey score. Like, that is a legitimate thing we could be talking about. Going 3-0 win.
100%.
Like, you could have the Steelers run the ball once and get to field goal range, kick a field goal, and just say we're going to take a knee and punt the ball and allow our defense to do everything else. And you can't even tell me that your defense won't be able to get points in this one. I don't understand how this game is so close. I know the Colts, or the Steelers offense, hasn't been spectacular, but they've shown small improvements. But even then, I would likely put this, if you said this was a 10-point game for the Steelers, I'd be like, yeah, because I don't know how the Colts offense, all
Well,
they need to do is stop Jonathan Taylor. That's all
yeah.
they need to do. If you
And
stop
look at what
Jonathan
they
Taylor,
did to J.K. Dobbins last week.
yeah,
They've shown like that this Steelers defense the last 3 seasons, the big issue has been run defense, and they have shown they have remedied that issue at
yeah.
this point. The
I
run
just don't
defense is
understand
there.
how this is so low. Again, I know the Steelers offense isn't great. It's shown improvements, but to me, I just go, this game, again, you could walk away 10-0. I
Well,
genuinely could sit back and say this is a game and a week where we could see a shutout.
this is also the worst defense that the Steelers offense have gone up against this year yet.
Hmm.
And so that bodes well also with how, as I was saying, they've been improving. Granted, we still don't have a number 2 wideout, but like I don't understand why it's so close. The only thing I can fathom, and also, you mentioned we've seen upsets every week. This could be one of them. Is it possible the Steelers are already looking ahead to Sunday Night Football Week 5 against the Dallas Cowboys?
Very
That
possible.
is
Very,
very
very
real
possible.
possibility. However, the Cowboys haven't looked good.
Hmm.
And so I don't think the Steelers need to worry about them enough to be looking ahead for that at
Yeah,
this point. And Mike
it's,
Tomlin's very good at making sure his guys are in the mindset of looking at this week.
yeah,
It's rare the Steelers fall into a trap game unless it's a divisional game the following week.
I hear you. Moving forward to the Jets taking on the Denver Broncos, where the New York Jets are minus 8-point favorites.
I mean, the Jets have looked good, man. But the Broncos shocked the Bucks last week and blew them out. And so I don't know. I don't necessarily agree with 8-point favorites. Is this game in New York or in
It's in New
Denver?
York.
It's in New York?
Yeah.
Yeah, then that's why they're 8-point favorites, I would say. Brees Hall has been looking great. this Jets offense as a whole has been looking great, and then you look at the defense. Like we joked about whether or not Aaron Rodgers could stay healthy, and the Jets being the Jets. At this point, he's healthy, and the Jets are looking like the only true competitor for the Bills for that division. Um, the Broncos did look a little improved last week. Bo Nix looks like he's coming along nicely. Sean Payton's doing his thing. It's not enough yet, though. This Jets team is going to likely feast on the Broncos. It's really hard for me to pick an 8-point favorite like that, but I think the Jets win, and I think the Jets cover that spread.
Yeah, I have the Jets winning this game and covering the spread. The Jets played last, or they've played almost like they had a mini bye because in week 3 they played Thursday, and so now coming into this game, they've just had time to rest. Aaron Rodgers, we kind of said like he was going to have that get right game against the Patriots, and he did. And so it's just been one of those things where it's like, okay, they're moving along, they're trucking along. And I just don't know if this Broncos defense is going to be enough to slow down that offense. And I know for a fact this Jets defense is going to be a hell of a lot better than what we saw from the Buccaneers defense. And it's going to kind of get back to that situation of like, oh no, like Bo Nix, he's struggling and he's going up against this and that. And I just don't think the Broncos have enough in this game. I think this is just one of those situations where it's just too early in the year and too early in the career of Bo Nix to try to elevate. Again, he still doesn't have a passing touchdown in this game or throughout his career. He looked better last week, but still kind of struggling in that red zone to throw the ball. I just don't think the Jets defense is going to allow him to do too much in this one. I think this Broncos offense is going to struggle and their defense isn't going to be good enough. I think we're going to see two of some of the best corners in the game, Sauce Gardner and Pat Surtain. I think Pat Surtain is going to do a fairly good job against Garrett Wilson, but it's not like we haven't seen Aaron Rodgers be able to find Allen Lazard or some of the other guys on that offense. So I think this is just going to be a really, really tough game for this Broncos squad. Moving forward, we have the Eagles taking on the Bucks in Tampa Bay. I'm not sure if that game is actually going to, because of some of the, hurricane issues, but it might be. Might be.
I think it probably will be because that the hurricane has passed through there already. So unless there was structural damage to the stadium in Tampa,
I'm just worried about flooding at the moment.
By tomorrow, I think it should, for the most part, be resolved because we did see some Major League Baseball games get postponed on Friday there and moved to Monday. Because there weren't a lot of inland flooding issues. There was a little bit, but not. It wasn't.
Regardless, the Eagles are minus 1.5 point favorites in this one.
Yeah, that's a believable spread. I mean, both of these teams have looked really good, but also struggled throughout. This is going to be a good game. I can't decide if it's going to be a shootout or a mess, though. That was a tough one for me to decide. Saquon Barkley,
amazing.
He looks so good, and everybody, like Eagles fans, like typical Eagles fans, he dropped a game-winning pass, and they all freaked out and were like, "Oh, why'd we spend money on this guy? He's trash." And then the next week he comes out and lights it up again.
Yeah.
Against a good Saints defense. Eagles fans need to pump the brakes. They get so emotional and so worked up so easily. It's embarrassing to watch them sometimes.
Yeah.
But Barkley is a game changer in this offense. As long as AJ Brown is out, though, this Eagles team is not going to be able to run away with games because they can't stretch the field the same way. I'm not sure if Devontae Smith
is listed as out.
He's out as well, yeah, because I know he was in concussion protocol. So that's going to make it tough for this team. It's pretty much Dallas Goedert, Saquon Barkley. Jalen Hurts is going to have to run the ball a lot more this week. That's why I think it is going to be very close. And Baker Mayfield's going to have a chip this week. He's going to want to get back after an embarrassing loss to the Denver Broncos. I don't know if it's going to be enough against this Eagles defense. I am picking the Eagles to win this game. Unless you can convince me otherwise here, because this was another tough one for me because Nick Sirianni has been making some questionable decisions yet again this year as a coach. Like, I feel like he should be near the top of the list for hot seat coaches because there's been some questionable moves being made by this coaching staff that I don't like.
Yeah, in this game, this was a weird and tough game for me to pick because you have two teams. You have one team that started the year out just so consistently on the offensive side of the ball with the Bucks. They were just doing it. They looked like they could do no wrong. Again, we always kind of looked at the defense and said they're not the best defense, but as long as their offense stays really, really hot, they're going to be able to play well. And with the Eagles, we kind of looked at them and said, okay, they should just be doing great things on both sides of the ball. And this offense has struggled. Jalen Hurts has not been spectacular. Sure, he's had some of the numbers with the 772 passing yards, but he only has the 3 passing TDs and he has the 4 interceptions. Again, Saquon Barkley has basically been this entire offense. And if the Bucks need to focus on one thing and one thing alone, it's you got to slow down Barkley. I don't think you're going to stop Barkley. I don't think any team in the NFL with the Eagles offensive line in front of him is going to stop him, but you need to slow him up. If you can get him to 80 yards and only a touchdown, that you need to consider that a win with Saquon Barkley, the way that he's playing right now. I think right now with this game, you're going to see slow, methodical offensive drives from the Eagles just with Saquon Barkley doing that, and I doubt that A.J. Brown is going to play, and we already know Devontae Smith is going to be out. And I think this Bucks offense, with just how explosive they've been, Chris Godwin is having a good year. Mike Evans is having a good year, and with Bucky Irving, the new running back for the Bucks, just kind of showing what he can do, I think this Bucks team is ultimately going to come away with a sneaky little victory here, and ultimately covering that spread as well. It's going to be a really, really fun game to watch. If I wasn't working and calling a football game tomorrow, this would be one of those games that I would be watching heavily because, I would probably have the Bears game on in the background with this game being a main focus. But yeah, right there, I just have this feeling that the Bucks are gonna come out and just have a little bit better of an offensive day, and that's ultimately gonna be the one. Again, this Eagles team, they have a very young secondary right now, going up against guys like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. That's a tall task.
You know what? You're right. And I believe that game last week was in Denver.
It was.
The Bucks. And this is a very old Buccaneers team. Godwin, Evans, they're not young guys. So going up to that elevation is tough on those older age guys. And so, you know what? I think you're right. I'm gonna swap my pick here, and I'm gonna go with the Bucks as well. I think being at home, they got the more explosive.
It was actually in Tampa Bay last week.
It was in Tampa?
Yeah.
Oh. That's interesting that they played that badly at home.
Yeah.
But you're right. They have the more explosive options right now because no AJ Brown. So I'm gonna swap over and say the Bucks win this game.
Now taking a look here at what could potentially have been the toilet bowl game of the week, but with the way that these two teams played last week and the way that they've been kind of going, we have the Bengals taking on the Panthers, and somehow the Panthers are better record than the Bengals. Like, even you, as a longtime Cincinnati Bengals hater, going into this season, if I would have said to you the Bengals would have been 0-3, you would have been good. But no, you're an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
Cincinnati is minus 4.5 point favorites. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? I feel a little bit bad for Joe Burrow because he's
playing unbelievable.
started rolling. He's got it going. Him and Chase have their connection. They both have been looking good. They can put up points. The defense is
So bad.
garbage. It is a bottom 3 defense in this league. You didn't turn the ball over. You didn't punt the ball at all. You were playing the Washington Commanders, and you lost the game.
Mm-hmm.
The Bengals are cooked.
Mm-hmm.
They're done. They're not making the playoffs this year. They're not winning the Super Bowl this year. They need to fix their defense.
Mm-hmm.
Simple as that. That is the issue in Cincinnati right now. And until they do, it's that you can't rely on them to win any games. As long as this defense is as bad as it is, they can't get it done because, oh, great. Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow drove down the field in 6 minutes and scored. All right, we're just going to go back down the field and do the same thing. And this was a Washington team that, they've looked okay, but they're by no means a great team. Jaden Daniels had his breakout game as a rookie against the Bengals defense because it is so, so bad. I have no faith in this Bengals D to win them any games, to keep them in any games. And the Panthers showed, Dave Canales showed with the benching of Bryce Young, bringing Andy Dalton in, that Bryce Young was the problem. All the same weapons, all the same playbook, everything the same. And instead of scoring 3 points, they put up over 30.
Yeah.
Bryce Young was the issue. It's tough for them this week. They did lose Adam Thielen, who, granted, I'm not high on Thielen, but that is a weapon you lost.
And you also have one of your top guards out, and then you have your other top guard, Robert Hunt, is questionable for this game. So the offensive line is going to be shaky at best this week, and we know
the O-line was already banged up going into last week, though, and so
but they still had both of their top guards in. That's going to be a hard replace.
It is, but you know what? I'm going to shock some people, and I'm going to jump on the Andy Dalton revenge tour that we're going to witness this year. And in Carolina, he's going to beat the Bengals. Panthers win. Bengals go 0-4.
I can't jump on board with you with that one. I
know.
Everything that you're saying about this Bengals defense is 100% accurate. But we need to remember who we're talking about here, who they're facing. This is the Carolina Panthers. This is the handicapped kid of the NFL. They went up against the Raiders. Of course the Raiders were going to lose that game last week. A quarterback change, this, that, and the other thing. That just spelled Raiders are going to lose, and they're going to be embarrassed by it. Somehow Max Crosby's going to get hurt in that game. That's going to cause them to not be playing for the next week. That's a really important game. Joe Burrow is having a great season. 746 passing yards, 5 passing touchdowns, no interceptions, no turnovers on the year. And I think this defense, it's going to be bad. It's not going to be fun to watch, and I think the Panthers offense will be able to move the ball a little bit against this Bengals team, but I just think at the end of the day, if this has to go into a shootout type of a matchup, it's not like the Panthers have that great of a defense. At the end of the day, I look at this and go, who has the better offense? That is 100% the Bengals, and I don't view this Panthers team, and I will continue to not view this Panthers team as anything more than just an occasional shock artist. This is a horrible, horrible team. The Panthers don't have a defense. They frankly don't really have anyone on offense. Again, Adam Thielen goes down. Oh no. The Bengals, Joe Burrow is going to have this team playing properly, and it's going to be Joe Burrow because he's going to go into that locker room and say, listen, we just lost to the fucking Commanders. Enough of this. He's going to go up to every single defensive starter, slap them in the face and go, I can pull out my checkbook and just immediately cut you right now. And I think this Bengals team, they're going to be playing angry. They're going to be playing furious, and they're going to look at the Panthers and just simply go, We don't care who you are. We're getting our first win, and we are like, this is just a different team. And I truly do think that loss to the Commanders has lit a fire under this Bengals team that is going to potentially be scary for the Panthers.
See, and I agree with everything you say. I agree with all of it. And I wanted to pick the Bengals this week. I did. But it's just, you said the Panthers don't have a defense. The Panthers aren't a great offense. Those two things can be said about the Commanders as well. They don't have a great offense. They have no defense, and they still pulled out that win. I know that fire is lit under Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, but they did everything they could last week. The rest of the team was not able to pull out a
Yep.
win. Like, they don't have a run game either. It's
I hear you. I do. It's just the difference between the
that's
Commanders and the Panthers is like,
oh,
you have two different
I
teams.
agree.
If you put the
I
Panthers
agree.
versus the Commanders, who's winning that game?
I agree. Totally worse. Yeah, they are a completely worse team. It's just I have so little faith in this Bengals team to pull together for Joe Burrow. He can't do it all himself. And it's just it speaks I just see this epic collapse happening in Cincinnati right now. They need to fix that D. And
I
I looked at all
genuinely
the
think
games
you
and
might
I was
have a
like
little bit of your AFC North bias coming in for this one. I know you
a
don't want
little
to,
oh,
but I know,
100%.
yeah.
100%. There is a little bit, but I looked at the slate of games this week, and we've talked about how there's upset after upset every week, and I was like, we see massive, shocking upsets, and
But this wouldn't be an upset win for the Bengals. It wouldn't be an upset win for the Panthers.
if the Panthers beat the Bengals, that would be an upset. Even an 0-3 Bengals, that would be an upset.
I don't think it would be, though.
'Cause if it's
I don't think
not, then
this is not one of those games I view as an upset worthy, because this is the Bengals team that everything what you're saying I
mhm.
100% agree with. This defense is a massive problem. They might be the worst defense in football right now. If you're the Panthers, you went up against a Raiders team that we viewed as a top 10 defense,
Mhm.
and you were able to do that. It's one of those things where I don't think anyone right now is viewing this Bengals team as potentially being able to win, but we also need to remember this is the Panthers.
Yep.
One win does not mean that they are anything more than what we've seen the last 4 years.
No,
Like,
and
this Panthers team is horrifically bad. We know Bryce Young was the major problem there. But this is also a 34, 35-year-old Andy Dalton. He gets hit a few times. He can go down. And like, I know I'm not trying to change your opinion here. I'm
no.
just simply it's this is a Panthers team that is genuinely
Yep.
the worst team in football. I don't think they can go toe to toe with the Bengals offense. I think we maybe have been discrediting that Commanders defense a little bit and what Jaden Daniels did. Again, that was a primetime game. This is the I just I think you're maybe taking the Bengals hate a little hard on this one.
Maybe that's what it is, but I just it does like it. I've lost faith in the Bengals to be able to win. We talk about defenses and how they get so run down when they don't have an offense to help them out, and they start just getting tired and not being able to put it out there. It feels like that flip for the Bengals right now. It's like Joe Burrow's great, but eventually he's gonna run out of steam. He's gonna be like, I can't throw 4 or 5 touchdowns a game and still lose games. He's gonna get dejected at some point. And it's just, and I still agree. The Panthers are the worst team. And that's why I think the Bengals will lose, because that change needs to happen in Cincinnati. And I think losing to the worst team after losing to a Commanders team that people were already, questionable about, it just feels like the natural trajectory of what this team is doing right now. They got to win at some point, and I'm 99% sure that I'm wrong on my pick here. Like I think the Bengals probably will win, but I'm picking the Panthers to win because I'm that questionable about this Bengals defense.
Now,
I just think that Joe Burrow as good as he is and as much as he's got, like the team around him feels dejected. Like I saw a fan interaction with T. Higgins who was like, "Hey T, like I
Yeah,
need you in my fantasy lineup
what's
this week," and
that?
he's
That's
like,
just
"Yeah,
T
bench
Higgins.
me."
Fuck off. Like that's just T Higgins telling a fan to fuck off.
I know,
Yeah, but
but
like
that,
I will say
but
this because we need to move on to other teams because we're already kind
that's
of like
fair.
a 45-minute mark.
That's fair.
I do have the Panthers covering the spread at 4.5.
Yep.
I do think this is going to be a close game. I just think the offenses, it's just going to be an offensive shootout. It's going to be, we don't have defense out there. What's defense? We can definitely jump in and talk a little bit more about this in the podcast section,
Yep.
but we do need to go on because this was like a 20-minute rant about the Bengals and Panthers. Texans taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars, where the Texans are minus 6-point favorites.
Yeah, I mean, Texans got beat up last week by the Vikings, and the Jags paid Trevor Lawrence and looked like shit.
Yeah.
Enough said. This we talked about last week. Several teams with get right games. This is get right game for the Texans, and I think C.J. Stroud is going to spank the Jags and go, my division now.
Yeah, I look at this. I don't even think this is a get right game for the Texans. This is just a get your aggression out game for the Texans because
Yeah.
you walked in, week 1 you played a great game against the Colts that was back and forth, a lot of excitement. You go out there, you go up against this Bears team, you kind of give all of that number 1 pick and the Hard Knocks hype, and you settle that down and you're like, okay, well, we're going up against this Vikings team. Yeah, sure, they beat the 49ers last week, but the 49ers aren't the Texans this year. So, and I think they might have kind of overlooked this Vikings squad, and they're going to go out going, oh, we see how it is. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We feel really bad whoever's coming up next because we are putting all of our energy, all of our focus into this game. The Jags, I have speculation on what their issues are, but they have a lot of issues, and this Texans team, they're going to pull the Jags pants down, give them a good old spanking, and just say, next, please.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Texans win, Texans cover.
Sure.
Texans win, Texans cover.
Yeah.
Looking at the Commanders versus Cardinals, and I know when we were chatting pre-recording, we both kind of looked at this game and went, this is going to be a really fun game to watch. When in reality, if you would have said to us at the beginning of the year, the Cardinals and Commanders were going to be a really good game in week 4 to watch, like this is one of those games you want to circle to watch, we probably would have looked at you and went, maybe, but like I doubt it. But the Commanders the Cardinals are plus 3.5 point favorites in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I would say let's differentiate a little bit between good and fun. It's going to be a fun game to watch. Don't know if it's going to be a good game because neither of these teams, as we discussed, have great defenses, but both have incredibly fun, explosive offenses to watch.
Yeah.
You've got Kyler Murray, James Conner, Marvin Harrison Jr. on one side. Trey McBride is out this week with an injury, so they've lost that tight end option. And then you've got Jaden Daniels, who had a breakout week. Terry McLaurin is like, oh, it only took 13 quarterbacks, but I finally got somebody that can throw me the ball. And Brian Robinson looks good. Don't forget about Austin Eckler. He's been having a resurgence this year. And so it's going to be an explosive, offensive, fun game to watch. It's in Arizona. The Commanders have a slightly short week because they played on Monday night. And I think they're going to be coming down a little bit off of the adrenaline of beating a Bengals team with Joe Burrow. I think the Cardinals are likely going to win this game and probably cover that spread as well.
Yeah, this is an interestingly weird game to kind of watch because the Commanders offense, we talk about Jaden Daniels and everything else that has been working well for them. I, at the end of the day, still 100% am going to give credit to Cliff Kingsbury. Cliff Kingsbury has this offense running perfectly. And It's one of those things. Both of us, we wanted Cliff Kingsbury to be hired by our teams as their offensive coordinator. Cliff Kingsbury is doing such a good job as an offensive coordinator through the first 3 weeks of being the Commanders' offensive coordinator. Teams this offseason, he's going to be probably one of the top candidates to become a head coach again. And people are going to kind of forget that what he was as a head coach for the Cardinals. And they're gonna like, oh, he can do this and this, and he's gonna be hired as a head coach this offseason. I'm making that prediction, and I think this is kind of almost a revenge game for Cliff Kingsbury going up against his former team. I think this Commanders squad, with how that offense is running right now, they just look so dominant. I think the Commanders are gonna come out and shock this Cardinals team. And really, it's not much of a shock because both of these two teams aren't necessarily great. It's just going to be a situation where I go, the Commanders are going to win this one. And I think they're going to cover the spread.
Yep. Yeah, this was a tough one for me to pick, because it's going to be back and forth. Is Cliff Kingsbury going to be able to inform the defense enough on what Kyler Murray does that they can have that edge? Or is Kyler Murray going to be able to inform his defense more on what Cliff taught him to be able to have that edge? Because like you said, it's a revenge game for Cliff Kingsbury, but it's kind of a revenge game for Kyler Murray as well.
Yeah. It's just one of those things where looking at these two offenses, they've both been better than what we initially expected them to be. I just think with the way that this Commanders offense, especially coming after off of that big Bengals win, I just think they might be just that little bit more. And so I think if you were to have this be a -3.5 for the Commanders in that favor, I probably would have taken the Cardinals to cover that spread because I think this is going to be a really close game. It's just since the Commanders were the underdogs in this one, I have to take them on the spread as well.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, and if this was in Washington, I probably would have taken the Commanders instead.
Fair. The 49ers take on the New England Patriots, where we have the 49ers at -10 points.
That's a big favorite for a team that is missing so many players and just got shocked by the Rams. I know it's the Patriots. I know they're bad.
And
I think they've got George Kittle back this week.
Yeah, they are in Santa Clara, so.
Yeah, they are at home, but from my understanding, Brock Purdy's dealing with a bit of a nagging injury. CMC's still out to week 12 or 13. Jordan Mason has looked all right. He didn't get a whole lot done last week against the Rams, though. And then Brandon Ayuk just hasn't got it done. Juwan Jennings had a lights out week last week. I'll give him that. But can he do it again? That's the big question. Can he do that again? I'm going to pick the 49ers to win, obviously, because the Patriots are garbage. It's just a matter of 10-point favorites. I don't know. I really don't know if I can take them to blow out the Patriots that much. They're going to win by a touchdown or more. I just don't know if it's going to be by 11.
Yeah, I might help make that decision a little bit easier. The Patriots have some offensive linemen who are going to be out in this game, and we all know what Nick Bosa does when he's playing quarterbacks of the opposite color of him and in this game. So I just think we saw what the Patriots were against the Jets, and they weren't good against the Jets, and we know what the 49ers did to the Jets. And sure, there's some injury concerns. I think the 49ers looked at what happened against the Rams last week and said, we allowed the Rams to win that game late, but we were controlling it for the most part, and we just kind of took our foot off the gas pedal. I think this is just one of those weeks where Brock Purdy, he just continues to roll like he's doing. Juwan Jennings, hopefully he can have another great week because I picked him up in fantasy. But I just don't think this Patriots team is going to be able to do kind of really much of anything against this 49ers squad. I think the shock of the first 2 weeks and obviously beating the Bengals in week 1 and then taking the Seahawks to overtime in week 2, I think that's kind of all faded away into the distance. Yeah, sure, they played, a Thursday ago, but I just don't think this Patriots team is just going to be enough, especially going over basically the entire continent to go play in San Francisco. I think the 49ers, this is just a pretty comfortable game. As long as the 49ers don't look a week ahead and they stay focused on this week, it should be just an easy, casual win for the 49ers. And I do think
Yeah.
the 49ers are going to cover the spread.
Yeah, 49ers win. 49ers cover that spread.
So now going over to the Toilet Bowl game of the week, the game that neither of us really kind of know what to do in this one because of two players that were announced yesterday, I believe that they were going to be out in this game, and that is Max Crosby and Davante Adams, both going to be out. The game is in Las Vegas, and the Cleveland Browns are minus 2.5-point favorites. And when I initially made the pick, which was on Thursday morning, I looked at this and went, yeah, this should be a fairly good Raiders win. But now that both of those guys are out, I'm going,
Right? I was the same way. I made my picks Thursday as well, and after hearing that they were out, I'm like, okay, so is it an angry Raiders team that's missing their two biggest stars, arguably? Or is it a Browns team that has some of the worst quarterback play and last year's defensive player of the year that's basically needing a walker to get around the arena until the game starts? Like, Myles Garrett right now, he's got a hip injury, he's got a foot injury, he's got an ankle injury, his MCL's bugged him. Like, you just go down the list, you basically circle his entire lower body as being injured, and he's playing through. And he's trying to, make light of it by going, well, a wounded animal is more dangerous than a healthy one. And it's like, yeah, dude, but you're a wounded predator against prey, sure, but you're a wounded predator going up against other predators, so it doesn't bode well for you. Like, it's so hard. If the Browns had Nick Chubb back, the Browns could win this, but they've had one of the worst run offenses we've seen, which isn't good when you've got Deshaun Watson that can't throw the ball. He's got weapons, and he's even come out and said, like, people have asked him, like, have you considered running the ball more to try and open things up? And he's like, no, they paid me to throw the ball and make decisions, not run the ball. I'm not a running back, I'm a quarterback. And it's like, man, that's so incredibly selfish, which we've just grown to expect from him. And
yeah.
this is why this is the garbage bowl this week, because it's like both teams are going out there with the intent of not winning.
Yeah. Pretty much the only way that I'm looking at this game is going, the Raiders still have Christian Wilkins from the D tackle spot, and he's a force to be reckoned with from that interior offense or defensive line. I like Gardner Minshew throwing the ball to Brock Bowers. I do. They've had a real connection this year. They didn't really get that going, but since Davante Adams is going to be out this week, Jacoby Myers is going to get the ball a little bit more, but Brock Bowers, throughout the first 2 weeks, he showed that he was probably a top 5 tight end already in the NFL, and he's already only in game 2. But week 3, they kind of went away from him. That's Luke Getsy being a dumbass. Mm-hmm. I ultimately think the Raiders will walk away in this game and get the win, and they're going to cover the spread. But I don't know. Take a coin, toss it up in the air. Even the coin is going to land on its side because it's like, you make a guess.
Right?
Like,
yeah, that's funny. I was going to make the same analogy. Like, flip a coin on it, except the coin's going to fall down a sewer grate, so you won't know what it ended up being, because that's how bad this game's going to be and how hard it is to pick.
Yeah.
But, you said it right there. Like, there's just more competent star power on the Raiders side of it with Brock Bowers. Gardner Minshew seems to be finding his confidence again. And, Christian Wilkins, he'll be able to make a little bit of mess for that O-line.
Especially when the Browns haven't been able to run the ball. The Raiders haven't been able to run the ball either. So these are two teams that can't run the ball. and frankly, you don't have a lot of trust in their quarterback. I just kind of recommend everyone just, not watch this one.
Yeah.
It's
Even if you're a
probably just
Raiders or a
easiest.
Browns fan, and if you're a Browns fan, I'm sorry, but it there's no point in watching this. Like it's gonna be so bad to watch, I think. Who knows? We could be wrong and somebody could just come out of nowhere and be like, "Oh wow, this guy might turn out to be a star for this team." The best thing that could possibly happen for the Browns is Deshaun Watson steps on a nail and Jameis Winston gets the start. And like even the Browns fans are calling for it already. They're fed up with Deshaun's antics. They want him to get cut and just roll with Jameis Winston at this point.
Yeah.
But I am picking the Raiders still. I waffled a bit, but
Yeah,
I
this is just one of those games where
yeah.
it's almost like, would you rather? I'm not even going to say the analogy that I initially had in my head,
No.
but it's just bad. It's bad. It's bad. It's bad. Chiefs take on the Chargers, where the Kansas City Chiefs are -7.5-point favorites in this one.
Yeah, I mean, 7.5 points. That's a tough one, but it's the Chiefs. They haven't shown any reason why they're going to lose at this point, and the calls keep going in their favor. At some point, they won't.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, the refs will change their minds, but at this point, I'm not going to bet against the Chiefs.
Yeah, it's pretty simple in my opinion. I think the Chiefs, and when people are saying like, oh, the refs this and this, yeah, sure, the refs are giving them some more calls, but you'll see that in every game where a team is getting more favorable calls. It just happens to be, the team that's going to potentially go for a three-peat this year. And, with the way that Justin Herbert was hurt last week, I think he's probably still going to be struggling this week. And if he's even going to play this week, that's still up in the air. And it's really hard to go against the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure, they're going to California, but that'll be essentially a home game for them because the Chargers don't have any fans anyways. So Chiefs win this one. I think they cover the spread just because I don't know if Herbert is going to play, and if Herbert's not playing, that just makes it even worse for this Chargers team. And
even if he is, that runs the risk of further injury. We saw it last week against that Steelers defense, and it's just, I think the reason we see that the referee talks so much with the Chiefs is because these calls are happening right at the end of the game.
They're in critical plays.
Exactly.
The fact that we
reason.
could be talking about the Chiefs being 0-3 off of 3 plays is a big talking point for sure.
Yeah.
And that's something that you and I will talk about likely in the podcast for sure. Make sure to check that out. But both of us taking Kansas City in the money line, and I'm assuming you are also taking that 7. Yep. So Bills taking on the Ravens in the Monday Night Football matchup, where the Baltimore Ravens are -2.5-point favorites.
This is going to be a fun Sunday night football game, man. Like, Josh Allen has been willing his team at this point to win, and it's worked. Like, at this point, like, if the season ended right now, Josh Allen wins the MVP.
Hands down. Not even close.
Right? You can't even argue that. And Baltimore got back to what I said they needed to last week, run the ball with the king.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a hard one for me to pick. But the way the Ravens have flip-flopped on their game plan, they'll do that for 1 week and they're like, oh, we won. And then they just go back to their old ways the next week and it bites them. And then they're like, oh, right, we've got Derrick Henry. So next week, I'll likely be picking the Ravens. But for this week, I'm picking the Bills to win this game.
Yeah, I look at this game and I just simply go back to that old saying of who's these two teams' quarterbacks. The two teams who are playing the two guys that are playing quarterbacks. You have Josh Allen right now, who is the clear front runner for MVP. It's so clear that it's him right now, and he's playing so unbelievably well. It's not even funny. Like I've always said, I have questions about Lamar Jackson. Sure, he's a phenomenal runner, and this, that, and the other thing. But when it comes down to the critical times of passing the football, I will always have questions for Lamar Jackson. And I think this game is going to come down to times where it's going to be critical of who can pass the football. And I think the Bills, again with Josh Allen, I think it should be the Bills. I can't be convinced otherwise. That Ravens defense isn't as good as everyone thought it was going to be. That secondary is very suspect, and Josh Allen right now has kind of discovered the same thing that Mahomes discovered 2 years ago, which was you don't need superstar guys out there. You just need to get the ball and spread it around and let the guys do what they need to do. And if it's a 6-yard pass completion, take it. Guess what? That just means if you have another 6-yard pass, you have a first down plus 2 extra yards. Exactly. Josh Allen has kind of figured that out this year, which is really scary for the rest of the AFC. And I just don't see the Ravens doing this. Again, people, if you want to call me a Lamar Jackson hater, sure, I'll throw the hands up. I do not feel comfortable with Lamar throwing the ball in critical situations. And so, yeah, Bills win this one. And they cover the spread.
Yeah, the difference is Lamar needs stars. Josh Allen doesn't.
Yep.
And the key for Allen this year has been he's cleaned up the mistakes.
Yes. He's cleaned up the turnovers.
Great, he's going to score 3 touchdowns, but he's going to throw 3 interceptions. He's not doing that this year. Nope. He's protecting the ball. He's being smart with it. And he's protecting himself. He's not taking silly, bad hits. Like, honestly, with this Ravens defense, if he avoids Kyle Hamilton at the safety and he watches out for Roquan Smith at middle linebacker, he's fine. The Bills will win this.
Here are the stats for Josh Allen this year. 634 yards, so a little bit down from what we would normally expect from Josh Allen. 7 passing touchdowns, no interceptions. Enough said. Enough said.
And add the rushing touchdowns and rushing yards to that. Yep. Because he's still doing that. He's still doing it with his legs as well. And then James Cook, making sure he's utilizing him as well in the way that the Ravens haven't done with Derrick Henry every week yet. Like I said at the start of the season, the Ravens hand the ball off to Derrick Henry 20 times a game. The Ravens are going to be favorites to go to the Super Bowl.
Yep.
If they don't worry about them.
Yep. Monday Night Football. We have 2 games again this week, and starting out with the Titans going into Miami to take on the Dolphins. Miami is 2-point favorites in this one. Now, I should mention this morning, Tyler Huntley was expected to be the starter, so I wanted to put that out there just in case you didn't read that.
Yep, yeah, I was actually going to mention the same thing. Skylar Thompson's dealing with that rib injury still, and so Tyler Huntley will be getting the start, which I think is a good thing for the Dolphins and Tyreek Hill especially, because Huntley, it's sort of like a sidestep from Tua to Huntley. Yep. You know, he's a very similar, mobile, able to extend the play style of quarterback. This is going to be good for the Dolphins. I think this will be a good bounce back. Huntley was always, I was always more worried when he was with the Ravens when he was playing instead of Lamar Jackson. You know, he was always a bigger concern for me because he was more willing to throw the ball instead of just run with it. This will be a good bounce back for the Dolphins against a horrible Titans team. You know, the defense, sure, it's okay, but Will Levis is just
bad.
I don't know if he just ate some bad mayonnaise and it's messed him up for the season or what, but he has not looked good. And the Dolphins will bounce back. You know, hopefully for Tyreek, it's to his benefit. He can get that 100 yards, couple touchdowns, and feel good. But if not, I think this will be a good game for Jalen Waddle because of Huntley's ability to extend the plays. If Hill's not there, Huntley will be able to extend it long enough for Jalen Waddle to get open and utilize that second option. And it's a bounce back game for the Dolphins. The Dolphins will win this game at home and start to right the ship a little bit.
Yeah, with this game, if the Titans had better quarterback play, just simply better quarterback play, I would say it should be a fairly comfortable win for the Titans. But with how bad Will Levis has played, He has been bad, man. He has had some of the, like every single week he has had a picture worthy, hang it on the frame of a laughable interception moment. Week number 1, it's after he tossed it. You had the, week 2, same thing. Week 3, he had another one. It's just going to be, what is Will Levis going to do in a turnover worthy play that is going to lose the Titans the game?
Yeah.
And
Jalen Ramsey's got to be salivating.
100%. And this really just kind of ultimately feels like it's not necessarily the Miami Dolphins going to beat the Titans. It's going to be, when is Will Levis going to lose the game for the Titans? That is kind of really what it has boiled down to this season. We've seen it every single game this year. And until we don't see it, it's going to be really hard for me to ever choose the Titans. And with Snoop Huntley coming in as the starting quarterback, he's a guy that is going to be consistent. He's not going to be great, Pro Bowler, not really a Pro Bowler in my mind, but he has enough intelligence to just go out there and get the job done. He's the perfect backup quarterback that you want. He's a guy that you are comfortable with going in, but you hope you don't have to use him long term. And yeah, I think the Dolphins ultimately going to win this game. I still want to see how they're going to play offensively with him in there before I kind of make any real decisions. But again, to me, this just feels like the Titans are going to lose this game because of Will Levis.
Yeah, I expect they'll lean heavily on Achane, and I do believe they're getting Raheem Mostert back this week as well. And so that gives them that two-headed beast in the backfield that they can lean on heavily, which should make it a smoother transition to Hundley for the Dolphins.
Yeah. Going to our final game of the week, the second Monday night game, where we have the Seattle Seahawks going into Detroit to take on the Detroit Lions, and the Lions are minus 3.5 point favorites in this one.
Yeah, this is the game for the Seahawks. Are you contenders or are you pretenders?
Yep.
This is it. This is your big moment. You have the Lions in Detroit. You're 3-0 right now. You're getting disrespected by the league as a 3-0 team, in your opinion, because you're not in the top rankings. Show us what you can do.
Yep.
Can they pull out a win in Detroit against a team that is still favored to be, one of the finalists in that NFC Championship picture? Can they get it done? Still no Kenneth Walker. I know he's only questionable at this point, but we all know those oblique injuries. As a running back, it's hard to do that because you're always getting hit in the ribs, in the back, and that's where that injury is. I don't expect him to play. Zach Charbonnet's done fairly well filling in. I don't know if it's going to be enough. The Lions, I think, will be able to pull this out. If you can't stop David Montgomery at this point, you can't stop the Lions.
Yep.
That's what it comes down to.
You know me. I have gone on record to say I think the Seahawks are frauds at this point. This 3-0 start, again, just looking at the actual schedule that the Seahawks have played. Week 1, you go up against the Broncos. Wow, you beat the Broncos. You beat one of the handicap kids. And then you went up against the Patriots. You beat up one of the handicap kids, and you had to go to overtime to do that. You then faced off against the Dolphins. You beat up a kid who literally is just covered in injuries. He's in a full body cast. That's what you did. I don't think this Seattle team is going to be able to compete with this this Lions offense. I think the Lions are looking at this going, oh, so we hear you're 3-0. Okay. Yeah. Try this on for size. And I think this Lions team, they're going to be playing unbelievably, and we're going to kind of see the Seahawks on full display. And I think Seahawks win, or not the Seahawks, I think the Lions win, cover that spread fairly easily. I think both David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, I think the entire Lions offense is just going to be, it's going to do bad things to the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, I still think it's going to be a good competitive game. The Seahawks are not slouches. They have a lot of star power. Geno Smith, sure, there's a lot to be desired there because, he's not a top 10 quarterback, but you've got DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Noah Fant, Tyler Lockett's still there. Like, you've got a good team. Even on defense, they've got some good players. It's not good enough. This is a statement game for the Lions. They're like, oh, like you said, you're 3-0. Good for you.
Prove it.
Watch what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it's going to be. They're just going to, it's going to be close in the first quarter. Maybe through the rest of the first half, the Lions are just going to take the top off it in the second half, though, and likely top out over that 30-point threshold. I don't think the Seahawks are going to be able to surpass 25.
Yeah. Thank you all very much for watching Week 4 Game Predicts for Sterling. I'm Brendan saying thank you all very much for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe and comment on the video, as it all really helps out. But till then, make sure to watch all of the other content, because we're posting a lot more from both us and on the baseball side of things. But till then, peace.